Hello there, everyone. Welcome to this live stream on the philosophy of John Locke, where we read his magnum opus, an essay concerning human understanding. Today, we'll discuss the topics of innate moral principles and innate ideas. To begin with, do you guys I have a question for you. Do you guys think there is such a thing as innate moral principles? I'm curious to know. Please leave a comment down below. And also, I would like to use this occasion for a small celebration, since actually, I think it was this week that I actually joined the YouTube partnership program, which means that I'm actually monetized on YouTube. Only the first level though, but still it needs a celebration. So I got some whiskey here with me. So, oh lovely, a Balvenie, excuse the pronunciation. Thank you so much, Wahid. I'm so happy that you're here for this live stream as well. I hope you're good. And I hope as well that you can hear me better this time. I really tried to uh, get an upgrade on the live stream this week. So, cheers, everyone. Ah, that's lovely. All right. So, um, now, before we delve into the new chapter that I was planning to talk about, let's just have a quick recap. So, the first chapter that we talked about, chapter 1, was just a rough sketch of John Locke's essay and what the goals are with his essay. So let's not dwell on that one. But the second chapter, that's the important, where everything begins, really. And in that chapter, he endeavors to disprove that there are innate principles of the mind. And I have drawn up the basic argument. FYI, this is my formulation of the innate principle argument. So the argument goes basically, there is universal assent. No, if there is such a thing as universal assent, meaning that everybody in the world agrees with the statement, then we have innate principles. There is such a thing as universal assent, therefore we have innate principles of the mind. And what would these innate principles be? Well, basically, people argued that the first two of these so-called laws of thought that was originally, I think, formulated by Aristotle. A equals A, which is the law of identity, and it is not the case that A and not A, which is the law of non-contradiction. And also, it is the case that A or not A. John Locke does not mention the third one, but anyway. So people argue that these two are innate, but John Locke disproves this by simply saying that there is no such thing as universal assent to these principles. Therefore, we don't have any innate principles, because he simply says that, I mean, the basic simple argument is that idiots and idiots and children do not assent to 1 and 2. Therefore, there is no such thing as innate knowledge or innate principles of the mind. So now, let's just see where I was. Where was I? And also, I wanted to add one thing that is basically what we discussed last week, right? And I wanted to add one thing from that chapter that I didn't mention, because John Locke actually agrees that if there is such a thing as innate principles, so if their innate principles exist, then there has to be a universal assent to them, right? Which makes sense. If something is innate, then everybody in the world has to assent to them. But that is clearly not the case. So therefore, there are no innate principles. So, and also I wanted to mention one thing. John Locke is not disputing whether these principles are true or not. He clearly says they are true. It's just not. It's just that it is the case that they are not innate. They are through experience we can figure out their truth value. We know, everybody knows that they are true. It's just not. It's just the case that they are not innate. And here's the thing also, now we're moving into the third chapter, I believe. Because if it is the case that these fundamental principles, I mean, if you do not think that these are true, then basically nothing in the world can be true, right? Uh, they, these are the most fundamental principles of all, I would say. I would say that these principles are more fundamental than math. So if you do not agree with those, you basically say there is no such thing as truth at all. So if that is the case, and if they are not innate, then what in the world could be? What could ever be said to be innate if these principles are not? Well, so now we're moving into the next chapter where we talk about morality. And morality seems even more subjective, right, than these principles. How could they be innate? Oh well. So John Locke disputes this. And the most simple argument is really, it was fun. If you watched my last episode that I put out on moral relativism, actually the funny thing is that John Locke uses the empirical stance of moral relativism, that it's simply is the case that if you look at different cultures throughout the world, they have varying moral principles or varying morals. So same thing here. If there is such thing as innate principles, innate practical principles in this in this instance, then everybody in the world has to agree with them, right? There cannot be innate practical principles that not everybody agrees to, but we simply know that morality varies in different parts of the world. Therefore, morality, innate practical principles, is not innate, right? But also I wanted to mention, because I think that it's the same thing goes here, that John Locke thinks there is such a thing as an objective morality. It's just that it is not innate. So that is like basically the easiest argument against innate practical principles. And he also, I also would also like to mention one other principle. One other argument. Excuse me. So, one thing is that if something is innate, then that principle has to be clear and we will be able to recite them at all times, right? But just I would be, if we have practical principles, innate practical principles, I would know them by heart, and I should be able to count them in the same way that I can count my 10 fingers. But this is simply not the case. And it's even worse. The philosophers who claim there to be such principles, they themselves cannot recite them properly according to John Locke. Therefore, there is no such thing as an innate morality or innate practical principles. So, I mean, that's just basically the gist of the third chapter. There are a couple of more arguments, but let's move on to into the fourth chapter, where John Locke disputes the idea of there being innate ideas. So for instance, he gives us the example of the idea of sameness, which I would say is basically the idea of A equals A, something being identical with itself. But if this is a practical, or I mean, if this is an innate idea, then we would not really be able to dispute it, would we? Because, for instance, if you guys know about Heraclitus, the ancient Greek philosopher, he argued that, for instance, that what is it? A man cannot step into the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man. Here, we're really disputing the fact that it is the same, even the same man stepping into the river. So the idea of sameness is not so clear, really, because we can dispute its truth, right? And so therefore, the idea of sameness should not be an innate idea. And then another thought was, during the time of John Locke, is that the concept of God is to be worshipped was considered to be an innate concept that everybody knew of. But if that is the case, then the ideas of God and the idea of worship has to be innate ideas within us, right? But this is not the case, according to John Locke. Because, I mean, same thing here when it comes to God. If God is an idea that is inscribed into our very soul before we're born, then everybody in the world would possess the same idea of God, right? But that is not the case. So, I mean, this is a very similar argument as the moral relativism case, right? Because we can simply, I mean, you just have to go to India to find that there is polytheism compared to here in the Western world, where we commonly have a monotheistic view of God. And these two are clearly different views of God, but how could the idea of God vary across cultures if it was inscribed in us before we're born? So that is, so the idea that God is an innate idea or concept is simply not the case, because we have varying beliefs. And also, how would you tackle atheism? If everybody had an idea of God, I mean, why would there ever be any atheists? Why would Richard Dawkins exist, for example? Well, I don't think they can answer that question, can they? So, but also, I want to mention here again, John Locke was not an atheist, I believe. He thought that God exists, but it is just that not the case that he inscribed in us the idea of himself within us. So he thought that God has endowed humans with faculties to realize his existence. Here I would like to read a quote. Let's see, where was it? Yes. God having fitted men with faculties and means to discover, receive, and retain truths accordingly as they are employed. So, well, yeah, so there you have it. Oh, sorry, Wahid. I'm just going to see what you written. The mind and its fundamental properties are permanently available to us, potential objects of explicit attention or awareness. Well, there you go. Thank you so much, Wahid. So he basically, the idea is that John Locke later says that every idea basically comes from experience either as a direct experience, just in the same way as that I'm directly experiencing my hands at the moment, or we can experience the world as remembering, or yeah, but remembering is only a past past direct experience, according to Locke. And here's the thing: if there are innate ideas, then they would have to be inscribed within us before we're born. But if that is the case, then we must be able to remember that moment when it was inscribed within us, right? But how many of you guys remember anything from before you were born? Well, nobody, I guess. But then someone might counter and say that, oh, these innate ideas are reside within us, um, but in another way than remembering or direct experience. But if that is the case, then they have to explain how that would work in any sense. Well, you guys, if you know, I think many of these ideas um, of innate knowledge, I believe, come from Plato. He had this weird idea that when we die, we our soul goes up to the world of forms and experience all the world of forms, and then before we're reborn, we have to drink from I think the river is called Lethe, and it is the river that makes us forget these forms and how they look like. And then when we're born, everything is everything that is considered real knowledge is just recollection from the world of forms. But so Plato thought that we actually remember these ideas. But what do you guys think? It sounds a bit weird. I mean, that is really more of a religion thing almost. But well, yeah, existence precedes essence. Some what is it? That is Sartre, right? Sartre. It was a long time ago since I read him. I I would love. I think I would love to cover some of his books, but that is for another time. Yep, thank you. I actually have that book somewhere over there. I think I read. What's the name of the book? Uh, Existentialism is a. Oh, Wahid, please help me here. Existentialism is a humanism, right? There we go. Yeah, I read that not too long ago. I think I should reread that one and cover the book on this channel. That would be fun, right? So, well, that is basically, now we've discussed basically the fourth chapter. I mean, there are certainly more things to both the third and the fourth chapter, but that is basically the gist. And after this, we're moving into the second book, which, I mean, it's the same book, but he calls like the bigger parts books. Uh, and then we're moving into the ideas, where where he describes the how the ideas come to be within our mind, how we attain these ideas, I think. But that will be for next week. My plan for next week will be on the first, I think it was 10 chapters of book 2. That might sound like a lot, but I think it's actually only like 40 or 50 pages. So that is the plan for next week. So if you guys, if you have any questions, please put them down below while I take a sip of this lovely whiskey. Um, so yeah, I also wanted to So what we've been doing now for these 4 chapters, what John Locke basically has done is trying to prove that there is no such thing as innate principles of the mind, that being these. And then in chapter 3, he proved that there is no innate morality or innate practical principles. And in the 3rd chapter, he proved that we don't have any innate ideas. And this is really the groundwork for the next book, I believe, where he discusses the clean slate or tabula rasa. Because if there is no such thing as innate principles or innate ideas or morality, then when we're born, we're really a clean slate, right? We don't have anything before we're born. So that is, I believe, the main endeavor of the first book, to really pave the way for the clean slate. And then we'll move forward from there. Oh, any homework? Well, yeah, I mean, isn't it enough with the 10 chapters of book 2? I think that's enough. Have you actually been following Wahid, reading all of this? It's lovely. Please, if you have, if I missed anything, or so, please just comment and we can discuss it. Yeah, I would also like to. What I think I had a. Yeah, do you remember last week? I drew the line of where on this side of the line we have the empiricists, and here we have the rationalists. I wanted to mention one extra thing, because I believe that if there is anyone who would dispute all of this, it would be Immanuel Kant. He is somewhat oddly in the middle here. If we have the empiricists here and the rationalists here, he sort of combines them later on. If we take this argument again, but just switch it up a little bit, I think Kant would say that if there is universal assent, then there would be not innate principles, but a priori principles. And then he simply states that there are universal assent. Therefore, we have a priori principles. And the thing is that what he introduces is the whole idea of synthetic a priori, which is really the combination of these two, because he sort of claimed, if I remember this correctly, he sort of claims that there is such a thing as a priori principles, but it's not the case that everybody is born with them. But when you reach a certain capacity of rationality, you will more or less you will assent to, for instance, these principles, I believe, because they are a priori. You will assent to them when you reach a certain capacity of rationality. So therefore, there are innate principles. And I think he bases basically his whole philosophy, really his whole philosophy on the idea of synthetic a priori, or at least his philosophy of morality. Because I think, if I remember correctly, he claims that the categorical imperative is a synthetic a priori principle. I'm not 100% sure about all of this, but I wanted to give you guys that suggestion. So I think that'll do for this one. I thank you all who joined in the live stream, and I hope that technical side of things worked out better this time. I had some issues with the sound, but I hope everything turned out well this time. So without further ado, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Take care until the next one.